So yeah, I guess this is the final episode for this lesson, and in this last episode, we're going to finally add enemies for the player to shoot. As you can see here, I've already made made the enemy sprite already with the code, and you pro well you may copy the code from here, but you won't probably know what does this code do. So I suggest you should let me explain first before you copy, so that you can understand. I also updated the player scripts here to set the lives and score variable. So what do these variables do? So this lives variable, like it is set to 10. Like it is basically how many times the player can touch the enemy before dying. Well, dying, I mean, the program will stop. The program will stop. And the score button, the score will change if the player shoots the enemy with the ball, not and doesn't collide with the enemy. When the bullet collides with the enemy, it will change the score. It will change the score by 1. So this is where these variables are set. Oh yeah, these they are presented with all sprites. Well, one way to make sure that if your variable is all sprites is for example, I want to make a variable called example. Well, for example, if I change this to this sprite only, it says sprite 1 example 0. Well this well this is the sprite which what for this is this sprite will this variable is and this tells the place tells where the variable is located in. For example, this variable is sprite 1, so it's going to say sprite 1 example. Yeah, but that's only an example, so we'll delete that. So if there's none, it's for all sprites. If there's a sprite given, then that means that the variable must be located in that sprite only, not in others. So you can add these, and let's go to the enemies. As usual, we're going to set this green flag. So how the enemies works? The enemies that chase the player are the clones. The main enemy is hidden using this hide button in the looks. Then this loop is where the main enemy will spawn the clones. There's a create clone myself, and there's a delay between how fast the clones are spawning. Then it is when it starts this clone block, where this is going to be triggered. This is basically the movement and animation scripts for the clone, for the enemy's clones. So in this here, this sets the cause. So this script, like, I'm going to duplicate this and show this to you. So this script here, these first 3 blocks, this script sets the animation costumes, which will be conducted in this forever loop. It says switch costume to join type, join such a costume which I made, and you see this purple block here. This is a modular block where it's going to set the costume. I also made variations of the enemies. Like you can find these in the costume button. I choose a costume. I just type in monster, and I can see these. I chose this sprite and changed the and added some duplicates to make animations. I chose these 3 for the skeleton, and this one for the ghost. This one, this one, this one, this one. Yeah, these three. Yeah, these five. Gonna go back as we've already made them. So this is going to set what type of variation this is going to be. This also sets the place where the clone is going to spawn. So it's going to set the clone's rotation style to only 0.90 degrees and 0.90 degrees only in one direction, and this go to X and Y block is going to place the enemy to that X coordinate and Y coordinate, which is randomly generated between the borders. But of course, there's a possibility that the enemy, or the clone, or should I say the clone, is going to spawn on top of the play, which is going to change our lives by -1. I place this here, this block. I'll explain that later. So yeah, it's gonna change lives by -1, and I felt that was unfair. I felt that was unfair that the enemies could spawn on top of you, which yeah. So I made a condition where if the distance, like basically a circle, basically an imaginary circle with a radius of 100 here. If the enemies are inside that imaginary circle, then that means that there's this block again, which is going to loop back to here. It will then set new coordinates and make sure, and this is going to loop back if this is inside the imaginary circle again. So yeah, this is going to loop back if this is inside the imaginary circle. If it is not, then it will not loop back. This if block here will set the variation. This root costume, this is here, this is set here, and then when I start this clone block, it picks random 1 2 3. If that root costume is 1, it will change the costume. The root costume will be the zombie. If the root costume is 2, it's going to set to this ghost. If the root costume is 3, then you into a skeleton. Well, the variation though, and you can add as much enemy types as you want. Just make sure you change this if, like, for example, like how much variations. Like for the maximum variations of me is 3, because there's 3 types of enemies: the skeleton, the zombie, and the ghost. If you want to add more of those, then you need to ask yourself how many types. For example, if you're going to add a witch, then that is 1 extra enemy type, so that's 4 total enemy types. So you need to add another if here. If root costume is equal to 4, then switch costume to witch, which I don't have, and you will set type root to witch. If you're going to also add a variation, you usually want to change the maximum. In this case, I have 3 types, so this is 3, but if yours is greater than that, then you must change that to the maximum value of types. So yeah, so the main job of this block as well, to place the enemies and set their type. Now there's a delay. Now about this delay block. Now about this delay block, it has to spawn this first before it goes inside the forever loop. In this forever loop, inside this forever loop are the codes that will change the animation and the movement of the clone. These 3 will control the animations. This costume block will switch between 1, or change between 1 and 3, going up by 1. If it is greater than 3, then it will set back to 1, repeating the loop. And about this join block, it's going to join the type given by this plus the hash. The hash is given here, the hyphen, and the costume, or the animation frame. You see, if the for example, if the type was this zombie, and if the type is 1, it's going to switch to this 1. If it is 2, then it will switch to 2. If it is 3, well, that's self-explanatory for you. It's gonna loop back, creating animation. As you can see now. Pretty clever, huh? Okay, so now finally, these blocks are the bullet collisions of the player. Like this collision, this if checks if it is not colliding with the bullet, then it will move towards the player, that is point towards the sprite run. Well, since this is left and right, it can only point at the mirror. It can only point at sprite 1 at 90 degrees. For example, if the sprite 1 was here, then it's going to point positive 90 degrees. But if the sprite was here, then it's going to point at negative 90 degrees. Then it's going to move at 10 steps move 10 steps towards the end, towards the player. However, if it is not touching sprite 1 and touching colors blue, well, this color is the bullet's color. But if your bullet's color is not blue, then you need to set that to the bullet color, to the color of your bullet. Since it is blue, I set this to blue, but you can set it to the color, to your bullet color. It's a must. It's a thing you should do, or else the game doing a mistake, that is that the bullet is actually the player and will trigger this instead. But if it is touching sprite 1, but it's the sprite 1's clone, that is the bullet, then it will change up score by 1 and it will delete that clone. Delete this clone. It's going to delete that clone that has been hit by the bullet. Going to put it back here. And now I'm going to explain about this block. Well, this is basically this block, but it checks for collisions for the player. If the enemy is touching the player, it's going to delete that enemy, but will change lives by -1. Like, it's going to decrease the lives, meaning I set the lives to 10, so that means the player can only hit 10 enemies with itself, not with the bullet. The body of the player. It can only hit with its body 10 times before the stop all triggers, causing the game to stop. Wait, I basically meant game over, but if you want to really make a game over, really indicate it's a game over, I went to sounds and got this boom cloud screen. How to get that? Let's use a sound. Right, type in boom cloud. There's this boom cloud here. Yeah, that's the sound it's gonna make. And set the volume to max by using this louder button. Oh god, listen, that is loud, okay? So maybe close your eardrums, okay? Maybe don't play this when you're using headphones. Warning. So yeah, we're gonna play that, but you can play any sound you want. So this code will trigger the stop block after it plays that sound. It will trigger the stop all button. So that's the main job of this collision box. This is going to check if it is touching the player, if it's touching the player's bullet. If it is touching the bullet, it will change the score by 1. and deleting the clone. How if it is not, then it's going to move towards the player, and if it is touching the player, it's going to change lives by -1. If it is not equal to 1, that is like, if the lives are equal to 0, then that means it's game over for the player. So we're gonna play. So if that is less than 1, so I made this if check here, that if the player's lives are less than 1, that is, it cannot be equal to 0. If it is not equal to 0, then you'll change it by -1 and it'll delete that clone. However, if it is equal to 0, or any number below 0, that is negative numbers, then we're going to play the game over codes. That is, then it's going to play this sound, and after it's going to play that sound, it's going to stop all the programs. So you can now copy the code. I'll wait for you to copy the code, and I'll zoom in for you. You can pause the video if you want to check, to copy the code given here. You can also experiment with the pick random buttons. Just don't experiment with this pick random button. No, nor this one. Nor this one. Don't. You can. You may experiment with this one. It will increasing this will increase the delay between how fast the main clone will spawn the enemies. It will spawn the clones that will chase the player. Maybe you can do that. So now I'll give you some time to copy this. So now I probably think you have finished all of this, and also updated the code to like this. You need to add these new blocks in the green flag clicked. I'm gonna wait for you to add those if you hadn't. Okay, so now you've finished everything. Now let's run the project and see our game. Oh look, there's a zombie. Oh no. Look. Oh no. My score is going up when I shoot the bullets at the enemies. And when the zombie hits me, and when the enemies hit me, it's going to reduce my lives. Sorry there. Let's see what happens if I let the enemies hit me until 9 times. See? Game over. Let's see how long I can go. Well, this is my first time editing, so I don't know how to speed up footages like this. I can just let you watch. So yeah, the animation code is making these dude animate and make them seem like they're walking. Make it seem like they're walking. That animation code from earlier, I mentioned that. It makes it look like the enemies are walking towards you, or like running towards you. Yeah. Isn't it cool, huh? Oh no, no, I know, and I'm one life. Damn. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, this is so stressful. So yeah. Maybe I predicted I'm gonna get a score of like over 300, I think. I think a score of 300. I don't know. Don't know. It's a scale. Yeah. So yeah, it was my score is 313. Like maybe you can beat that. Yeah. So that's it now. Bye bye.